Hello everybody and welcome back to episode number 3 of Fattening the Curve. First up, I'd just like to say a heartfelt thanks to everybody who's watched, shared and subscribed to the videos so far. We're certainly having fun making them for you. Keep those messages and emails coming through. In fact, here's one right now. It comes from Rod, all the way in Paulshof in South Africa. He writes, Week 2 of the lockdown isn't going well. The bottle shops have closed, I've run out of wine and I haven't left the house. Please, 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 for the love of God, when will this stop? You must have kids. Good luck with the next 4 weeks. Thanks also to everyone that's written in to ask if they can have their products featured on our show. However, when we started this, we did decide that we weren't going to have any commercial partnerships. We didn't want to be seen as selling out. Today, we've got something very special in store for you. Today, we're going to be cooking a traditional Irish stew. Well, not traditional, because we're not going to be using Guinness. We're going to be using something different. Hey, Bubs.
Yeah?
Do you know where I put the Moondog Timothy Slam beer?
I think it's on the second or third shelf, next to their new strawberry sour beer.
Got it, thank you. Yep, we're going to be using the Tim Tam Stew chocolate biscuit milk stout from Moondog Brewery. Now this is a lot sweeter than Guinness and it's going to give the finished stew a much deeper flavor profile. That sauce is going to be rich, it's going to be sweet, and combined with some of the other ingredients that we're going to be using, it's going to be great. I can't wait to get started. Just looks amazing. Smells delicious. That's brilliant. Before we go through today's ingredients, it's competition time. You need to decide for yourself, did the sun just come out? Or are we shooting this on a completely different day? Because when we first started filming, we ran so long that the stew was going to be ready at 1 a.m. in the morning. Write your answers on an N95 face mask and send it to PO Box 1041 Brighton Road in Victoria, Australia. Right, let's go through today's ingredients. What we've got is about just over 1 kilo of diced beef chuck. Now you want that diced really nice and thick because in the cooking process, it shrinks up and it breaks down. So you want to keep those final chunks in your stew as big as possible. Then we're using some diced pancetta and some diced streaky bacon. Now you don't have to use both. I'm choosing to use diced bacon as well because I had some left over from breakfast. Next up, vegetables. Now I'm using diced carrots, parsnips, turnips, and I've got some celery in there as well. You want to keep those chunks nice and thick, as with the beef, because you don't want it to break down in the cooking process. Moving on, we've also got some roughly chopped onion and some garlic. We've got 1 to 2 tablespoons of flour. Of course, we've got our Tim Tam Stew beer from Moondog. We've got a couple of tablespoons of tomato paste. We've got some bay leaves and a couple of sprigs of thyme. And finally, the stock. Now, I'm using just over 2 cups of chicken stock, but you can also use beef stock or vegetable stock. It doesn't really matter. You're just looking for something to cook all these ingredients in. Let's get started. The first bit of the process is pretty important. What you want to do, in a fairly hot pan, put a couple of glugs of olive oil in. Then, add your beef in batches. Now it's important to do it in batches because you don't want to stew the beef. You don't want it to go all grey. I've also hit the beef with a good amount of salt and pepper and I patted it dry before I put it into the pan. What we're looking for is that really nice brown colour, the Maillard reaction. That's what gives meat its flavour once it becomes a stew. So once you've turned them over once, transfer them to a plate and then continue doing the rest of the batch. Make sure you turn the stove down to a lower heat because next we're going to add the onions and the garlic. Make sure you scrape the bottom of the pan really well because you want to bring up all of that charred beef flavour through the onion. Make a bit of space in the middle, then add your bacon and pancetta. What we're looking for here is the fat from the pancetta and the bacon to render down and start incorporating into the onion and the garlic. Next up, add the tomato paste and give it a stir through. Then almost immediately you can add all of the vegetables. Make sure you give it a good toss around to get that tomato, onion, garlic mixed all over the vegetables. Next up, it's flour time. Sprinkle the flour quite liberally over the vegetables. Next step is my favorite bit. That's right, it's time to add the Timothy Tamathy Slamathy beer. Next, it's time to reintroduce the beef that we cooked earlier. Notice all of those juices going into the pan. You want every last bit of that flavour into your stew. Give that a good mix around. Oh, that is delicious. So is that it, you ask? Absolutely not. We've still got a while to go because we're going to be cooking our stew in a slow cooker. It's very important that we don't end up with a tough, chewy beef in our stew. So what we need to do is we need to add the ingredients of the pan that we cooked on the stove to the slow cooker. Then we top it up with the stock, add in our bay leaves, and then our thyme. Add in the stock, whack in some bay leaves, chuck in the thyme. Don't worry about stripping the thyme off. You can pick the sticks out later on. Give it a stir. Push those bay leaves right down into the stew. Get it all incorporated. It already smells delicious. Whack it on high for 3 or 4 hours or on low for, say, 5 to 8 hours. The longer you cook it, the slower you cook it, the more tender that beef will be. Hey, a little tip. It might be really tempting to lift the lid on your slow cooker to have a peek at your stew. Don't do it. I'm warning you, don't do it. You'll end up wasting heat and putting hours on top of your cooking time. Waiting for the stew, waiting for the stew. Next week I'm doing something much faster. Stew, 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 stew. I can't wait to eat it. Ah, shit. I just spilled beer all over my shirt. What an idiot. It's the Tower of Love. Irish stew. It's as Irish as potatoes. Potatoes. You probably remember at the start of this show when I did the vegetables. There were no potatoes in there. Did I forget? Yes. Yeah, I forgot. But I'm going to turn it around because I'm going to do some roasted potatoes in the oven, some oven roasted potatoes in the oven. And the roasted potatoes, they're special ones. They're glass potatoes. They don't have any glass inside, but they're really good. They use a lot of oil. I'm gonna probably not do them now. I'm gonna put the recipe up on the screen. Follow it. It's the shit. Okay, the potatoes are in the oven. The stew's nearly ready. Now for a few final ingredients that will help lift your stew and make it that extra bit special. First up is some dried fruit. Now I like to use dried apricots and dried prunes. Not a lot, just a little cupful. Just chop them up nice and fine and whack them in towards the end. Same with the mushrooms. I'm using Swiss brown mushrooms, but you can use anything, button mushrooms, anything really. Dice them up. Mushrooms a little bit more chunky than the fruit. Whack them in towards the end, and it'll really make your stew stand out. The time has come. Oh, it smells amazing. All you need to do is just get a big ladle full of that stew, and it's time to eat.
Babe, it's 2:30 in the morning. Come on.
Yes, sorry. See you next time on Fattening the Curve.